So I think these new redraws that we got are the continuation of the new chapter 110 that we just got last week or 2 weeks ago, the one with Fubuki, Super S, and Rover, or at least according to the Tonorenoi website. And also, according to Murata, the artist of the manga, allegedly this is going to be the end of the redraws for now. And I guess that's because he's reached the amount of content needed for volume 24 that's either going to be released this month or next month. I'm not really sure. There's been an unusually long hiatus between the release of volume 23, which came out in January, and volume 24, but it wasn't really that big of a deal because we were getting like main story updates consistently, and it was pretty nice, and we for sure got spoiled by it. But that being said, I guess it's very likely that the next update that we get will be chapter 150, which may or may not show us what happens between King and the cadres. Yes, that was the last time we got an update to the main story. But anyway, we're seeing Amai Mask discover the laboratory of the Monster Association, or at least one of them, because he asks, like, is this the only lab there is? And this is nothing new. Originally, we saw Amai Mask discover this place, or at least just where Orochi's incubator was. But what is different here is we're seeing the engineering monster, which is just a nice quick way to establish that, like, yes, there are some monsters in the Monster Association that are like genius engineers and can develop all of this equipment and stuff for them. It's honestly not even really needed, but it's just a nice way that one is like covering all of his bases. So then Amai Mask says that Atomic Samurai's message mentioned there was one other child in need of rescue, so I'd better get moving. And that's in reference to Terio, who Atomic met during his fight with Black S. And they weren't all aware of this because Waganma didn't initially reveal this information to Child Emperor. So then we see Amai Mask encounter the monster cell harvesting machine. And we also saw this originally too, and I always liked the way that this was establishing how this whole monster cell operation went down with the Monster Association. And also the fact that Orochi is able to produce these, I think, is even more interesting now than it was originally, given the new information that has been revealed about Orochi with the redraws and everything, you know, since he's like a prophesized monster. So given that he has this ability, it's possible that God may have wanted him to have this ability maybe, or something, or gave him this ability, or it has nothing to do with God, and it just so happens that this type of monster always has the chance of just existing, and it having the ability to make other monsters is tied to it, because maybe that reveals what the agenda of monsters are, possibly, or I'm just looking way too much into it. So then he destroys the machines, and I guess this is pretty much signaling the end of the whole monster cell stuff. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like one or two show up like in the future of the story. Somehow, some way, there was somebody that was able to like save one or two, or had their own secret stash of them. But I think this is just establishing, for the most part, don't expect monster cells to like be a thing anymore. And if that is the case, that's fine with me. We've had, you know, our fun with monster cells. I think it's time to move past that point and only use this as like a secret card to play, like, you know, towards the end of the series or something, to just make things a little more interesting. So as he's walking away from the destroyed equipment, he's talking to the monster head that he's been holding this whole time, and he's like, you kill Lord Orochi, you wouldn't even be able to defeat a cadre. So that's some foreshadowing right there, because we know currently in the story that is certainly the case, and he has been dominated by the cadres. So then he feels like something creeping up on him, and then he turns around and there's a mirror there, and you'll instantly know that this is Fear Ugly's mirror. If you remember, like back when we had that montage of the cadres initially defeating the S-Class heroes, we saw that Fear Ugly had like these funhouse type mirrors, but we didn't really know how it got to that point, because when they originally met, there was no mirrors involved, and the sequence was much different actually, although eventually led to all the same exposition and everything. So I like that, you know, with these redraws and retcons, they're making the best use of them and just getting that connective tissue there, showing us immediately, oh, there was already a mirror there. This was already set up by Fear Ugly, because he knew that he was going to encounter Amai Mask. That was the matchup that he wanted, and this was going to play into his psychological battle against him. And this also goes back to what I talked about in the previous redraw video about how they added that connective tissue of showing how Rover came into the picture going against Fubuki and Bang and Bomb, because originally we had just come to them already fighting, but then one made it so that Super S leads them to Rover. We also get this little comical sequence where like Amai Mask is like checking himself out in the mirror, and the monster's like, wow, I heard you were a terrible narcissist, but holy crap, dude. And Amai Mask is like, monster like you wouldn't understand. As an idol hero, every single move I make must be perfectly beautiful. And on the surface, this is just affirming what the monster had said. But going deeper, one could see Amai Mask saying this very earnestly. Going back even further with this new string of redraws that we've gotten, it was basically revealed by Super S that Amai Mask is pretty much like a monster that could shapeshift. So given that that's likely the truth at this point, what he's saying here could play into that. And speaking of that, he runs into Pure Ugly here, who is like his worst possible matchup. He says, this, even I can't win against this one. Even the handsome, highly intelligent, capable, brave, mighty warrior worth 1,000 men, the perfect hero, handsomely masked Sweet Mask, cannot win this. And it makes you wonder, like, why can't he win this? And also the fact that he knows 100% what Pure Ugly is. He says like a type of Ugmon, one of many monster varieties that occasionally appear, ugly monsters aka Ugmon. As a result of the many social difficulties they experience due to the way they look, hatred builds up, enveloping their hearts in darkness and turning them into monsters. Their strength when they become monsters is influenced by the ugliness of their hearts. And this totally makes sense because that lines up with what Dr. Genus was talking about in chapter 88 when he was explaining what he thought made a human turn to a monster. When human beings become monsters, there's an explosion of frustration resulting from unsatisfied desires and the urge to transform, driven by destructive behaviors and psychological complexes that the individual's past circumstances and other factors may give rise to cellular abnormalities and spontaneous mutation. So with the Ugmons, they're kind of using that foundation but taking it to the extreme with their ugliness. But why is Amai Mask like so helpless against this? Because it makes you think, going back to what we talked about with Super S revealing that Amai Mask may or may not be a shape-shifting monster, how he's so obsessed with beauty and being perfect and everything, and how just simply seeing an Ugmon like Pure Ugly makes him freeze up and unable to move. It's like, is Amai Mask looking at himself? And that could also bring back into play the mirror, and maybe that plays a bigger part. Maybe it's like a metaphor for his relationship here. So that's all I really want to say for now. I did make a video 2 years ago on what I thought was going on with Amai Mask. You can check it out here. But let me know what you think about Amai Mask, what's going on with him, and why he is the way that he is. But if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.